All right, what is up, everyone?
You never tell me when we're live.
I said we're going live.
No, you
didn't. Scott Brandt, Miriam Wilson here.
Hi. Cooper Wilson.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Cooper had a very cold sandwich. It was very tasty based on what he's shown.
It's all over mommy now.
You know how it works. So. Right. But before we start, of course, want to highlight the sponsor that we have for the show, and that's Jasper Axelrad with Tabala Cuisine. Right now, she actually is working on some different things in regards to the winter seasons. So they're not going to be as busy because
nobody's outside.
Yeah. So it was interesting, but yeah, she said that they're going to end up doing some brainstorming and see what direction and what route to kind of go while in the winter months to still bring in a little money. But
what about like catering?
I think she's talked about that, but I'm not for sure. So, but yeah, let me see here. And so I just got to find it real quick. She had typed it up. Where is it at?
Good job being prepared, Scott. I'm just kidding. I'm never prepared. Fly by the seat of my pants.
So Tabala is more than a food truck. It's an experience. Our chef sources with Colorado farmers to bring you creative cuisine that is ever-changing and locally infused. Be sure to check out TabalaCuisine.com to find our latest menu items and location. When you need creative comfort for your belly's soul, chase the taste of Tabala. So, again, thank you, Jasper, for jumping on, being our sponsor.
Thank you.
She's done a lot for us with Patrick and I within 2NS. And so, like, everything's kind of going under the umbrella of 2NS. But it's another way that we have the advantage to use our platform to highlight what they're doing and whatnot. So it's a powerful thing to be able to utilize another platform to help showcase the local business.
Right. It's supporting local business. I mean, shit, I want local businesses to support me, so gotta support them.
Yeah. So I know this week Thanksgiving is coming up.
Yay.
And so the divorce is finalized. So now you get to experience
holidays.
Yeah, holidays on the other side of it being finalized and whatnot. So have you thought about that in regards to what that may look like?
So I feel like not a lot is going to change. The only thing to me that really sucks is it's still splitting the holidays. And it's not like we don't alternate as far as you have him 1 year. So we split the exact day. So if I ever wanted to take him out of town somewhere or whatever for that holiday, I can't because we split that day. So that's the only thing I feel like is going to be any different. What about you?
So what we normally do is like this week, the girls are with their mom Monday through like early Thursday afternoon. So Thursday morning, they'll have lunch with their grandmother, their mom. I think their mom, boyfriend may be there, but I'm not for sure. I know her sister-in-law is in town. And so I think it's going to be probably about 1:30 when I end up going and picking them up. And then I'll have them the rest of the time until Sunday evening. And so...
Okay, so you still get them a bunch of the time. So that's cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of looking to see what's going to be easiest for their schedule because they still have gymnastics practice the first 2 days of the week. So it's one of those things that if they're already have that taking place, be with their mom coaches at the gym. So
I was going to say, do you not take them to gymnastics at all? Or is that her?
That's thing? Usually her because during the week is when they have practice.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah. So it works out as best as we can make it work out. No hard feelings because ultimately it's coming down to what's best for the kids.
Sorry, I'm just gonna. Okay, all right, and there we go. Go get it.
Yeah. So with the weather change right now, Cooper's over here got the winter fun sickness going on.
We both did. Oh my God, it kicked my ass. And no, it wasn't the Rona. I could still smell and taste and didn't have a fever. It was just a really bad cold. But golly,
Like a head cold.
It knocked me down. Losing my voice. I can't quit. And I won't go into any details. Yeah. But, and still not like 100%. I don't know if you could still tell. I'm quite congested. So I'm sure I sound super hot.
Well, it's one of those things. It's the winter months. So it's Colorado. And
plus it's having a kid and then they bring all their germs home.
Yeah.
I'm like, great. Thank you, kid. I appreciate it.
Yep. So kids are the ultimate incubator for germs.
You're right.
And passing that on to family members. And so it's like, you've heard it like last year. I've heard a lot of families be like, yep, kid got it. It just went through the whole household, went back and forth.
It just sweeps through.
And so it's just what it is. And it's just the way to build the immune system, but it's not fun to have to deal with it. So
true. By the way, are you cold? Or are you like going to go rob a bank next? Or
no, it was
what's up
cold.
with like the hat and then the hood?
It was cold when I came inside.
You had your face mask on. I swear to God, I'd be like, okay, you can take all my money.
It was cold outside.
Oh.
So just kept the hood on and just went with it and whatnot. So hey, I do what I do. So I live my life how I live it.
I know, but I got to give you shit every time.
It's all good. But yeah, so talk a little bit about positive psychology because that's kind of what we touch base in my coaching class today. And just some very unique pieces that were highlighted in the class today. They were Noelle Cordeaux, who ran the class today. She was saying that positive psychology is kind of like fruits and vegetables for your body.
Okay.
So the positive psychology ends up feeding your body properly. Because she was like, when we started the class for about the first 20 minutes, everybody went around and talked about things that they were grateful for. And then as people started hearing other things and had the micro look into other people's lives and what they were grateful for, it kind of opened up and it changed the perception for a lot of people because it's just one of those aspects of releasing dopamine and serotonin and whatnot. So it's powerful, the power of gratitude and just being around people that are positive. But then you do have some people that are very extreme because they had talked about there are people that are hardwired to be more optimistic. And then there are people that are more hardwired to be pessimistic, which is unique. And so that's one of the aspects as being a human. It's the joys of interacting with people because this is intertwined into their genes. And you're like, man, I can't be around this person, but it may be their genes. And so that's a tough thing.
But that's so, I know what you're saying though, because I've been around people, I'm like, okay, is there anything that's ever good in your life? Like you only talk about the negative, but I know that is intertwined with their genes. And maybe this is just me, but I feel like, what's his name? Charles? No, wait. I get his name. Dyer.
Wayne Dwyer.
Yeah.
Dyer, yeah.
My thing is, I think if you just focus on the negative, then that's all you're going to see. So I still love that quote. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
So I think there's a way to kind of get, or at least not, I don't know how to say it. I can say get better because it sounds like a sickness and it's not, but you know what I mean.
And so that's one of the things that you can adjust that because DNA is one of those things that I was listening to somebody and they said DNA is a malleable thing. And so your body can actually rearrange the DNA, which is powerful because like cancer cells and whatnot.
Right.
I was watching a video and they were showing using hertz, the sound waves were actually blowing up cancer cells. And so it's sound waves and we put off a vibration. So
right.
It's one of those things
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so, but that's the thing though too, is I was doing some research and I think it was a book that I was reading. I'm not for sure exactly, but they were saying that your heart actually puts off a 6-foot radius of energy. And so people can pick that up as far as 6 feet away from you. So if you're like, oh, this person doesn't realize that I'm angry, mad right now, but if they're close enough, they can sense it.
You can see it in my face if I'm angry.
So it's one of those unique things because World War I, before that, it was very humanistic, looking at the individual and whatnot. And then as we went through World War I and World War II, we started looking at the mental health as a disease model. And so we were getting into a point where we could build and solve problems. And so that's a lot of issues that we run into is people are trying to be built up and it's not getting to the heart of things.
Right.
And so it's the positive psychology piece. But it's one of those tough things sometimes because as caveman time, the fear cycle will kick in and stop you from going towards danger.
You're right.
And so it's the same thing here where the negative thought stacking occurs and it keeps you from going forward because you're freezing because your brain is a 2 million year old organism that still hasn't adjusted from being in the caveman time.
True.
So it's very interesting, but then also the fact that Noelle was talking about a exercise called Gremlins. And so she was saying that if you have an issue in regards to maybe you go and you look at the dishes and it sets you off and you get so pissed at the dishes that you're like, screw this. So
I'll just go buy more dishes.
Well, instead of looking at that as because you have to consider and say, okay, what am I going to give power to? Am I going to give power to the dishes to control me? So it's that internal stress that you've got to pull away from yourself. And so she was saying that she had a client that would call it Fred the orangutan. And so instead of internalizing it, it would be external. The name and the face was able to help with that stress. And so she was able to get out of the emotional brain and get into the logical brain. Because if you're an emotional person, you can't make big decisions because you're not thinking properly. She actually brought up the fact of think about somebody that just fell in love. And if you try to talk to them, they're like, no, no, no. And like, she's like, a lot of times they fall in love and they don't see it. And then they end up looking over all the red flags. Yep.
Right here.
Yep.
Right here.
And
Completely what
so
happened.
it's unique when you can take it and give it a name and a face. And so she actually had a client and she said hypothetically her last name was Edwards. And so she has an exercise of, okay, touch the doorknob. And when you get ready to open it, what is going to happen? And so this client said every time she would touch the doorknob when she was imagining it, she would hear her mother's voice. And so she actually called that voice Edward because that was her mom's last name. And so it ended up doing the aspect where it worked out that it was able to give a name to whatever was taking place. But yeah, it's one of those things that you kind of have to look at it a little bit because it's sometimes outside that box that we're used to.
Gosh, I could have used that the other day because it wasn't the dishes that set me off. I got another phone call on a debt collector. And it was something for my ex. And I'm like, nope, you need to contact him. He's like, well, you guys accrued the debt when you're married. So technically you're still on the hook. I'm like, oh, are you real? I'm not going to lie, I was so mad I kind of hit the wall. And I may or may not have broken down just a little bit. But I composed myself. But yeah, I could have used that that whole giving it a name thing at that time because that sure as shit set me off.
Yeah. And then she also talked about another client that one persona she would call butterfly. And so when she was in her flow state, her cake flow state of being in a good mindset, everything working out, she would be a butterfly, because a butterfly just flies around and does what it wants and doesn't worry about what people think.
Yeah.
And then if something came and really knocked her off of her path, she's like, that's a life sucker. And so if something took place and she was excited, Noelle would send 150 butterfly emojis just to kind of feed into that.
Yeah.
But then if something was going on, she'd be like, oh, life sucker came up. It really sucked. It was an asshole. And she's like, okay, well, what happened here with life sucker? And so that's kind of how they would talk about it, because you're able to take yourself out of the emotional brain and get into the logical brain, which is one of those things that you really have to do that flip and switch.
Oh my God, that is so frustrating. Wait, which part?
What's up, Jasper?
Oh, hi.
Yep. So Jasper said, OMG, that is so frustrating. So hopefully whatever we're talking about,
right,
maybe
hopefully I didn't frustrate you. Like
no, it's got to be something in regards with, I don't know if Jasper wants to highlight what's frustrating. Love to hear it, but if not, that's cool.
Peer pressure.
Yeah. But I think it's a powerful thing when you can do that positive psychology and change things around and look at things a little bit differently to get you in a better state of mind and a better flow. But it's also the fact that a lot of times our brain, because of the caveman aspect, is looking for the negatives. And so it's like, okay, well, here's the negative that's going to stop you. And then you start stacking those thoughts, and then you're like, why am I here? Why am I so mad? Well, what thoughts are you stacking?
That's kind of what I had to do to get myself. I had to. Plus, I was sick, so and tired, so it just made it worse. But I definitely had to. Mama. Yes, baby. Bring myself out of that because I was just spiraling down. Because then I would think of, well, he did this, and then it just kept going and going and going. Instead of going, it'll work out in the end. You know what I mean? Like it's not the end of the world. But it took a while. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things that it's with coaching, it's more putting the client in the power position. Therapy actually goes hand in hand quite well with coaching. Therapy is more of the therapist being at the head of power,
right?
And helping out with that. And then coaching is the other way, where the client is in the power position.
Yeah.
Because they're the expert in their life and they know what's best for them. It also comes down to the fact that you as a client have to understand that you have to be the hero of your own journey. The coach isn't there to save you. They're there to be a guidepost and a mentor and whatnot, but you have to get through the hero's journey, and hopefully
kind of like herding cattle. Like you're the dog and you just, maybe you should go this way. Here's a suggestion.
Yeah. And that's the other thing you got to be very careful though too, is if the client's not open to hearing that suggestion, and then you give them that suggestion and then they go run with it and they're like, this did not work, and then they're mad at you because
does that happen?
I've talked to coaches before where they've given advice without inquiring if it's okay to give advice. And then the client comes back and is mad because that advice didn't work for them.
So as a coach, do you not give advice at all? Like how do you get your client to kind of...
It's all through questioning. It's questions. Because the thing is, as the client, you're center in your life. You're with yourself 100% of the time. And so it's hard to look outside that box because that's your life. So coach is coming to help you with a flashlight to do a 360-degree walkthrough through your life. And so they're there holding the flashlight with you to explore and whatnot. So it's giving an outside perspective that you may not see. And so it's asking those questions. And then the biggest thing too is with homework is based on the client. Because they are the expert in their life, and so they know what they need best, but they're just overwhelmed sometimes because of life being overwhelming. And so that's where it comes into play of, okay, what's the smallest, simplest step that you can take to start moving forward to where you want to go? And so it's just those small, simple steps. And then the other thing is you get some coaches that kind of will get upset because they take it personally if there hasn't been growth taking place, but you're not in that person's life. They're in charge of their life. You're there just to be there with them, and give another perspective, but also have gentle accountability for the client.
Right.
So, but the thing also is the client has to be ready for coaching too. Because if they're not willing, because there's the first stage of pre-contemplation that they may know they need it, but they're not ready for it. And so,
just like me, and it took me a while to realize, okay, I want to go, talk to a therapist. But in the beginning, I knew it was one of those subconscious things. I knew I needed to, but I didn't want to. Yeah. Like, I don't want to talk about things. I just want to be on my own. I'll figure it out myself and move on. Yep. But then again, I'm that person I hate. It's not asking for help per se, but it's along those lines, because you're still kind of looking towards that therapist, like, hey, help me get to where I want to be. You know.
And so that was the other thing that they talked about. It's called the VIA Strength Finder, and it's 24 characteristics that everybody possesses. But when somebody takes it, they've got their top 5 and their bottom 5. And she's like, the bottom 5 is not a sign of weakness. It's just that the bottom 5 is just not anything that you need in your flow cake. Your top 5 are the ones that you actually need to be focused on and make sure that that they're present with whatever you're doing. Because if they're not present, then you're not having a fulfilled life. And so
I'll just tell you.
So, but it's one of those things that I'll actually post in the comments once I get home. That link for the VIA Strength Finder, because I got to take it too. It was a link that they had talked about in class today, but I was like, oh, that's very interesting, because to know what your 5 strengths are at this time, that is part of your flow cake. That really helps you kind of focus and drives who you are at this time. And she said you could do it like once a year, because you do,
because things change. Right.
Yep. So, but yeah, it's very interesting. And it was a great class. So a lot of great information, and
good save.
It was beautiful. But yeah, it's one of those powerful things, just some of the stuff that they talk about and whatnot.
That's pretty cool. How long is the class?
It's 2 hours every Sunday.
But how long? Like the length? Like
it's
it
20
weeks? 20 weeks.
20
okay.
week intensive.
What are you on?
We graduate the end of January.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we have homework and everything like that. So I have to go through, do practice coaching sessions. And
what made you want to do it?
Just in regards, because when I talk to individuals, especially because the friend I was telling you about that we had met in September, he was having some issues with his marriage, and then we had sat down and talked. And I've talked to him a little bit, and he said, yeah, what we talked about really helped out. And so it was just that validation that it's kind of who I am. Coaching is there. I'm very driven on just helping people out.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that I look like everything that I'm doing, like 2NS is kind of, there's some coaching that's going to be in there. Like Patrick, part of what we're doing 2NS will be business coaching, because Patrick's very prone on people searching him out for business coaching, life coaching for myself. But the niche for myself is divorced gentlemen. And so it's kind of the reason that we started the podcast.
Right.
Just to have the platform to reach a bigger audience.
Right.
Which the cool thing I was looking for the podcast, we've had 586.
I was going to ask, like, where are we at now?
So almost 600. It's a slow growth process, but it's one of those things that I was talking to another coach that I met through a mastermind group, and he was asking me what my sticking point is to try to gain clients. And it's I told him the biggest thing is trying to get in front of divorced gentlemen. And he said, well, you're going to have a very tough aspect, because guys, it's one of those things that guys don't want to ask for help.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
Just like you don't want to ask for directions.
Yep. And so, and when he brought that up, I was like, yeah, no, I can fully see that, because for the first 14 months, and that's where a lot of things clicked for me.
Right.
Was I was trying to be on my own, trying to be Superman and all that. And so I had a friend that I talked to. He went through a divorce, and he said for 2.5 years, it was the worst time of his life. He was just depressed, angry, upset for 2.5 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. Again, I don't think I'm to that point where I'm going to be like, I forgive him, but I'm getting closer, if that makes sense. Like, I know I can feel it, like all the work I'm doing now, or the podcast, of course, is helping. And of course, the more and more I talk about things, even with, just friends, I can feel me getting closer and closer to that spot.
Mm-hmm.
But again, your divorce was finalized, September 2nd? So, yeah, year and 3 months or so.
Okay.
So,
well, that's the thing. It's everybody's different. And so that's where your body will kind of let you know. But it's also having to do the work on that too. Which is the interesting thing was she was actually, Noelle was saying that if you end up receiving a fake smile, it actually impacts your heart by causing little micro tears in your heart.
What do you? Oh, okay, sorry. Go back.
If somebody gives you a fake smile.
How do you know it's a fake smile, though?
Based on the study, that's the thing. Your body can pick it up because there's micro expressions when it's a authentic smile, and so it's the crinkle in the eyes here. It's very unique. But when I heard that, it's just like the whole energy that your heart puts off. 6 foot radius.
I have never heard that. Did she write a book? I'm gonna read it.
No, she did talk about some different books and whatnot, but when I heard that, I was like, man. So
I've never heard that. That's kind of crazy.
So the negative psychology and whatnot, the negative emotions can be very impactful on your body.
Well, maybe that's why I wasn't happy for 8 years. I thought I was, but over time, I wonder if that just kind of like chipped away because I felt exhausted at the end of my marriage. So again, it's one of those, I'm grateful for it because I wouldn't be where I am now.
Yeah.
Did I want it to happen? No. But now that I'm on the other side, I feel completely different. And again, one of those things that I've been really thinking about is rediscovering myself before my marriage and finding those things again, what I like to do that he didn't, which unfortunately was a long list. So, and that I think is helping some too, is going through all that. Who was Miriam before he entered the arena? So that's been kind of interesting.
Yeah, so you got to think, because you said you weren't happy for that time together, but you got to look, were you your true authentic self during that time, or were you a pseudo self?
No, I think there was parts of me that I kept from him just because I did feel that judgment, or I did get flack for it, or I did, like, again, when I tried to talk about the miscarriage, he said, don't talk about it, So can you imagine the other things in my life that I tried to talk about and was told not to? So there's all these things that I kept to myself.
Yep.
You know how lonely that is?
So it was, you were being your pseudo self. You weren't being your solid true self, because you weren't able to express everything in the relationship. And so that can be very draining on a person. And so that's where you felt tired at the end, because you had to put up that front. You weren't able to be your true authentic self, and you weren't able to show who you truly are.
Right.
And so that's not going to be good for you as an individual.
No. Again, I'm glad he pulled the plug. So, yeah.
But that's also where you got to look and also understand that it's part of the journey. It's part of your development piece and who you are now. And so it's one of those tough things. But there was also, you got married for a reason, and then fell out of love because things were showing up and whatnot. But you fell in love for a reason. And then you just weren't able to be your true authentic self. And so that's not going to power the relationship, because both parties have to be their solid true self to show up fully. Because that's also the communication piece.
Right.
So if you're able to,
lacking too.
so if you're able to show up as your true self, you feel comfortable to have those talks, to have the communication.
Right.
But if you are your pseudo self and you can't speak who you truly are, you're not being true to yourself. And so your life container is being cracked. And so it's got to be solid for you to grow, because if it's cracked, the soil and everything is falling out the bottom. And so by being your solid self, you're building a solid container for your life.
And then I grow into a big old tree.
Yep.
Yeah, I had something, I freaking forgot it. Crap.
Being true to yourself, coming back to yourself.
So yeah,
which I said is I titled it "Returning to Your Center," and so that's kind of what you're talking about, is going back to your center point, to who you truly are.
Right.
So I know
you
that
lose yourself. Well, for me, I don't know if everyone did in their marriage, but I lost a lot of Miriam, and so now it's figuring out, okay, who is Miriam?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a mystery book you have to solve.
Yep. Well, and that's one of the big key points that I really harp on with people is you've got to complete yourself. The other person is there to complement you. And so if you end up looking at the other person to complete you and you forget yourself, that's where it's going to end up being where you lose who you are.
Right.
And so that's not a good thing. And that's where a lot of relationships have the tough piece, because a lot of people end up losing who they are.
They are, right.
And then you have a lot of times where people will say that their identity is the relationship. And so it's very interesting, because I was listening to a podcast, or what was I listening to? But they were talking about the fact that right now, because of the pandemic that's taken place, a lot of people are getting into depression and anxiety.
Oh gosh, yes.
Because you got people that are losing their business. And so you get a lot of gentlemen that, because they're supposed to be the breadwinner and all that, they have their identity in their business. And so if they lost their business, they lost their identity. And so that's where you've got to understand that your identity is yourself.
Right.
That business was just a complementary piece to who you were. Your marriage, your relationship is a complementary piece to who you are. You've got to complete yourself. But that's where a lot of people don't go that route, because of what we've been told and how society shows up. And then the fact that she was saying that love is the ultimate like fruit and vegetable for your body. And she's like, it's not the Disney love. True, like love is the eye connection piece and the micro look into that other person's life. Which I was like, oh, okay, that's something that I've never really thought of or heard about before. Right. But it's that connection piece with somebody, and it's the eyes and whatnot. But it's one of those things that she was talking about, the fact that, oh, let me see what we have here. It was very interesting. She was saying, let me see. Adaptation. She was talking about adaptation. When you have a good thing take place, it usually will run 3 months, the cycle. And then after the 3 months, you go back to your center point. But if it's a negative experience, it's 3 months before you get back to your center point. And so, yeah, I was like, oh my goodness. So if you have these constant negative stacking aspects, just think about how long that cycle is.
Oh, God. And
you're never able to get back to center. But if you can start flipping and start having the gratitude, finding the positivity, everything of that nature, it's a very unique aspect. But she said it's also that fact that a lot of people, happiness has to precede success. Because a lot of people are like, no, I have to have success before I have happiness. And she's like, you can't do that. You've got to have happiness before you have success. I was like, okay, I can see that. But a lot of people are like, well, if I get this house, then I'll be happy. If I get this job, then I'll be happy. Well, what if you don't get the house? What if you don't get that job? Then what? You're going to be like, I'm mad now? That's not going to do anything for you.
I mean, it could be disappointing.
Yeah, but if you tie that, because now it's also expectations are predetermined resentments. And so if you have this expectation that this job is going to make me happy, and then you don't get it, you're going to have the predetermined resentment that's going to drop you down because you had the expectation that that job was going to make me happy.
Okay, fair enough. There's the final Scott giggle. God, you're making me worried. I thought you were like depressed over there.
Nah.
Pod deck time?
Did you get into what you wanted to talk about? Finding your center?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was quick.
Well, sorry. I something popped up in my head and I totally spaced. Maybe I'll remember it for next podcast.
Well, so did you want to record next week? Because it is Thanksgiving weekend, so I don't know if you had.
Oh, yeah. I don't really have anything.
Okay.
But if you've got, your girls, you got family.
No,
totally
because
fine.
I'll end up doing like what I did. So they'll end up going back to their mother's house Sunday evening. So before I come over here, I'll drop them off.
Yeah.
Because then they go back to school, even though they're e-learning and whatnot. But but should have the Pod Deck app when we do the next episode. So that's going to be very enjoyable because that's 12 different decks.
Oh, geez.
Like one of these decks.
That's right. It's being released soon or something, right?
Well, Apple's already been released, and so
that's right. It's Android. I'm sorry.
That's why I had some of those questions because I ended up borrowing Q and Danielle's Apple, so I could check it out because I was like, man, I'm not going to wait.
Apple users, Android's better.
Yep. So it was very interesting. But yeah, so Black Friday is when it's released. I'm excited because one of those decks has like 350 questions.
Jesus.
So there will be a never-ending supply of questions. So it's a good time.
Gosh, who even comes up with all these things? I was talking to somebody there that I'm like, what did I saw something. Oh, so I took my son to Dino Land or what's it called? That thing in Woodland Park.
Dino World?
Yeah, or so I don't know.
And you had to go read?
Right. I was so excited for this dino museum because I'm like, it's dinosaurs. Come on. And it was nothing but reading. Who wants to read on their day off? Yuck.
Good for your mind.
Not on a Sunday. I have to do so much shit during the week. Sunday is I don't want to do anything productive day. It is a rest my mind from the week. But it was still fun. He got to run around. But no, he had some like this wallet and I can't even describe it. But apparently it blocks from anyone getting any of your information. Wow. And of course it has like a little clip and it's just compact. I'm like, can you imagine if you could invent one thing? It can set you up for life. Go on Shark Tank. Just go live on the beach somewhere.
Don't give me that idea. Patrick and I will work on it.
Yeah, but then I still don't get anything because I didn't come up with shit.
You gave us the idea, so maybe
I didn't give any idea.
We'll give you credit.
Okay. Like there's other things that I've thought of, like, would this actually work? Does someone want it? And then I'm like, does it make life easier? That's the one question that you have to ask yourself with inventions nowadays. If it makes someone's life easier, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, oh, cool. Like, why do you need an avocado slicer? You can't just grab a knife?
Yeah.
But there's a thing that will just do it all for you. And I'm like, again, that person's a millionaire. Why couldn't I have thought of that first?
Okay. That's when you look at the product and see if there's a problem that they have missed. That's how entrepreneurship works.
Oh, that's true.
So you look at the consumption chain. So there's actually, his name is Mattress Mac down in Houston, Texas.
His name is what?
Mattress Mac. That's his nickname.
Okay.
So, but
I was like, please tell me his parents didn't name him.
No. So, what he did was he's only got one furniture store, and he does like 80 million a year just with this one. But what he did was the problem that he saw in the consumption chain was people were ordering their product and weren't able to get it right away. They had to wait. And so what he did was guarantee that people, when they ordered their stuff, they would have it the same day. And so he's kept up with it.
No, how do you do that? Like, whatever people call in, or because you still have employees. That's crazy. Genius, though.
Yeah, so it's one of those. It's a very interesting thing. But yeah, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times.
Are you picking and choosing, or just grabbing?
No, I'm picking and grabbing.
But you don't get to decide.
Oh no! I'm just drawing a card and making sure it wasn't one that we've done before. So that's why I'm excited for the app.
Oh, because will it record which ones you've already used, kind of thing?
No, that's the thing, because like I said, one of those decks has 350 questions.
Yeah.
So normally we do about 3 or 4 questions. So I don't remember which one that is, but they have a superhero deck in there. So
that would be interesting.
Yeah. And then they have one, it's a relationship deck. So I'm like, okay, this one that I had came across, I was like, this has got to be for like a podcast that maybe has like 5 or 6 individuals on the round table and whatnot. Because
that would be hilarious.
But the question was, who do you think is the wildest in bed? Yeah, I was like, this is like,
yeah, that's a group thing.
It has to be. So it's got to be one that you got to have like 5 or 6 people on the show. But that's the thing. We've already done that one. But they actually have a game. This is very unique.
Like a Cards Against the Humanity type thing?
I don't know. Did we do this one? I don't think we did this one.
I don't think so.
All right. But it was the fact that like you'll have it's like the worst case human or something of that nature. And so it's like you're playing with friends. And
oh God, that's how you
Yeah.
lose friends, though.
I was like, oh my goodness.
God.
It's a very risky game.
It's like playing Monopoly with family. Someone's leaving disowned.
Yeah. Well, it's like, have you ever listened to Dan Cook?
Oh my God, yeah.
The Monopoly episode one.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Grandma, you cheating. You got a pink $500 bill? Screw this. And flips the Monopoly.
That's the thing.
board.
If somebody always flips it or walks away or there's cursing involved, no matter what in Monopoly. I don't even know why people play it. Well, unless there's drinking. Just say.
It's one of those very interesting things. So which one do you want to do first?
Do number 3. What is the dumbest way you've been injured?
Mine. So I was deployed to Afghanistan and freaking was doing deadlifts and ended up losing my form and went to go pick up and my back was arched and I blew out my back. So about a week, and I'm in a deployed location. So it's not like I'm at home where I can rest.
Right.
I'm having to work. So for a week, it was the worst feeling ever. And now it's one of those things that it's a recurring injury. So got lazy, ended up not lifting properly, and now I've got an injury that lingers.
Okay, everyone's going to laugh. So I broke my pinky toe on a blanket.
Is that how you originally broke it?
It got caught in the blanket, and I was kind of like standing on it or something. And when I tried to pull away, like pull my foot, it pulled my toe sideways. And so, I don't know, pulled it somewhere. So it broke it. So again, it's that reoccurring injury, but it's because of a blanket.
Oh my goodness. Was this like a blanket that had holes in it?
No, like I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, it was just
okay.
Yeah.
Oh man. So this is what the heck. What slogan or jingle got stuck in your head forever?
God, forever?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing that I can really think of is this is the song that never ends.
Lamb chops?
Yes.
So we already know what mine is. It's the Let's Go. You already know.
Yeah. I forgot you said slogan.
Hey,
Okay.
that's how we roll.
This is the interview deck. What technology do you wish existed?
Human cloning.
Oh, man. Yeah, because I could really use an assistant.
So the funny thing is...
Or just someone to do my laundry.
So that's when you hire somebody. When you get to the point.
Yeah, but I'm cheap. I'm just trying to save money right now, Scott.
Well,
I'm building a business.
I also know that you like it a certain way too, though. So
yeah, I probably won't let them.
That's why.
You know what mine would be?
What?
Teleportation.
So are you talking about the Jetson tubes, or like Star Trek?
You lost me on both of those. I don't do Star Trek.
You
I'm not a Trekkie.
So teleportation.
Yeah.
So Star Trek was real big with that.
Oh, okay.
But the Jetsons had the little tubes. So like at the
I
bank.
don't remember that.
Because this is actually Garrett and I.
That's not teleportation. That's just sliding down a tube.
Oh.
No, like you're here, and then all of a sudden you're in Florida next to a beach.
Okay.
Like that kind of teleportation. That would be amazing. Because again, I could get off work and be like, I want to go hit the beach, but there's not one around here.
I got you. And then this is, would you rather be able to record your thoughts or your dreams while you sleep?
Oh, dreams hand down. Like God. I woke up the other day at 12:40 and I know it was because of a dream. I don't remember it now, but I remember waking up going, that was flipping nuts. So I could like make movies out of my dreams, I think.
Yeah, I know. So the dream piece for me would also be it. But I also know a lot of people will talk that when you wake up, like the first 5 minutes, you kind of just want to write. Because
I'm not
it's
awake though.
there. Well, yeah, but that's the point that they've talked about is when you wake up, the first 5 minutes, write down your dreams as much as you can remember, because that's also a tool and a trait that as you do it more and more, your dreams will become more vivid because you're working your mind by writing. So, but it's one of those things. Have you ever heard of the idea of lucid dreaming? So lucid dreaming is where in your dreams you're awake, but you've got to. So Q was telling me that one step that if you get into the step of lucid dreaming, while you're in there, you've got to pick up like a book and start reading it, and because you shouldn't be able to read the book because it's your brain saying, "Hey, you're still dreaming, but you're awake in your dream." I was like, man.
I've never.
Yep.
Is that where night terrors come from?
No. Night terrors are a little more of the imbalance of chemicals and whatnot. Because night terrors are more of you could be dealing with an anxiety or maybe fears and whatnot that's causing those night terrors to be popping up and occurring. But lucid dreaming is one that I've looked into and done some research, and it's a very powerful state to get in.
Yeah.
But it does take work to get to that point. And it's one of those crazy things too that if you start lucid dreaming, like you're awake in your dream.
So no, I don't want to be awake in my dreams. I want to be asleep. Passed out.
It's nuts. But yeah, so I think this was about the same average length of our episode, so
I can't see that far because it's tiny.
It's almost 50 minutes.
Okay.
It went by fast. I thought it was less time than that.
I know, I did too. I'm like, maybe 30 minutes?
Yeah.
But
so anything that kind of stuck out from what we talked about? Anything that really was an aha moment for you?
Not necessarily like an aha moment. But there was that whole name thing. What was it called?
Gremlin technique. So you can end up having it like the one client called her stressor and whatnot for the orangutan.
But what was the concept behind doing that though? What is
to get you out of your emotional brain?
Okay.
And to get you into your logical brain.
Okay.
So because it extracts that internal stressor out of you, and it's an external thing that you're able to give it that name and face and have it outside of you. And so it's one of those things that, is it a opinion or is it a fact? And so if you're having the stress and whatnot, giving it that name and face allows it to get outside of you. And so you're able to get into your logical brain instead of your emotional brain.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. Like I said, there was that phone call I got that really set me off. But I typically try and, like, I know, I don't want to say I don't want to do the emotions or accept them at that time, but then I don't want to make any sort of decisions at that time either. So I try and wait until I've calmed down and again look at the bigger picture and go, okay, is this figure outable? Because again, that's my whole motto thing for this past year. And I had to take a second. I took a hot bath, calm myself down, and try to get myself out of that, like you said, that emotional side and into the more logical side. And then I was able to call him and go, hey, here's what needs to happen. And this is what's going on. And I was calm, collected. I didn't curse at him or call him names that I wanted to earlier. But I had somehow got myself into that more logical side to where I go, okay, we need to fix it. Like, yeah, it fucking sucks, but let's move on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. So. And so that piece right there, going from the internal piece, bringing it external by having that name and face, it does kind of speed up that process to get out of the emotional brain and into the logical brain, which allows you to go through the decision-making process at a quicker rate than if you end up getting stuck in an emotional rut and you're like, I don't know what to do.
It took a half hour. It took a little bit.
Yeah. But and that's the thing though. It's a tool, and it may not work for everybody, but it's a tool that may be beneficial. You just never know. So,
right.
But yeah, no, it's a enjoyable time. Great episode. I think I took up most of the episode.
That's okay. I will just sit here and listen.
So, of course, for everyone, thank you guys for your time. Anybody that is a recurring listener of the show, we want to thank you guys. Anybody that this is your first time checking out the episode, we ask that if you enjoy what we bring within the episode, share it with somebody else that you know could benefit with what we're doing for our tribe and our community. Because I think that was one thing that I talked about is for gentlemen, it's really having to get out of our own way. Because
it's putting your pride down.
Yep. And so, but then it's also the fact that for women, it could be that shame factor. And so they may have that point where they don't want to show up potentially because of the shame factor and whatnot. So I don't know, being a woman, what's your partake on the divorce piece? Because I know guys, it's the ego piece and we screwed up and we didn't do what we were supposed to.
We always blame ourselves, I think. And I think that goes for a lot of different things. Like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? What was wrong about me that he didn't want to stay divorced or wasn't attracted to anymore or what have you?
Yeah.
So it's more of dealing with all of that and pretty much tearing ourselves down. And again, that's same thing we do with society. We judge ourselves from looking at other parents and go, oh, I need to be a better parent. What can I do better? I'm going to destroy, like, all these negative things instead of going, no, it was nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, if it was something to do with you improve on it. But it was dealing with that for me of what made me so bad that he didn't want to stay married to me and wanted to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well,
and then that's the fact though too is you don't know what's going on in the other person's head. So now you're trying you're trying to get into headspace. And so I think that's also the point of you completing yourself and then the other person's complimenting you. And then it opens up the door to be able to talk and have the communication and be vulnerable and transparent and be your solid true self.
Right.
Because that makes that relationship a safe space like it should be. Not a space that you end up feel like you can't be true to yourself.
Right.
And so that's the toughest piece is you've got to show up and be true to yourself.
Right. You got to show that other person who you actually are, because again, that's going to be tiring and it's eventually going to come out.
Yep.
So just be you. If it's right, it's right. If it's not, it's not.
True. And then, of course, like we always talk about too, we do have the Facebook group After Divorce Grace Laughter Lessons. So anybody that checks out the podcast, we do have that within the Facebook realm. We do have a couple questions that we ask that you answer because if you don't answer the question, we don't know. So we probably can't let you in just because the questions are there.
They're there for a reason.
Yeah, so, but yeah, other than that, like we always talk about too, we do have a setup where you can provide monthly contributions to the show, which allows us to continue to provide content to you, our audience, our family members. But it's for us, this is just an avenue where we're able to provide value and just share what we've gone through, the tools, the strategies, what's helped us out. And that's the thing though, too, like I talked about it too, is what's worked for us may not work for you. But we may bring something up that you haven't considered. And so you'll be like, oh, okay, let me look at it that way. But we can't dictate that for you as an audience member. You have to make that determination for yourself. And so that's where you're the hero of your own life. You're going through your own hero's journey. And hopefully when you go through this journey, you return back to the village and you've ended up growing and doing some different pieces of the growth piece. Because if you've gone through this journey and you return the same way when you left, growth didn't take place, which is not a good thing.
Right.
So, but other than that, we'll catch you guys later. We look forward to next week's episode to continue to provide value and content to you, our family, and our audience.
Bye.
Later.